Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Viking Academy podcast. This week, we've got John Osborne. Now, John Osborne, he's a senior faculty member at the Art of Living Foundation, artofliving.org. You got to go check this out. John is an expert when it comes to breathing techniques. And what we talk about in this podcast is not only how breathing techniques can help PTSD, he talks specifically around Army vets and the work that he's doing around the United States to help them reintegrate into life. We go deep into how breath work actually gets you in touch with what he calls the unchanging. There's a changing world, and then it's that which is unchanged. Basically, source. We talk about source code, which is God, Allah, Buddha, Brahma, baby Jesus, whatever you want to call it. But once you connect to this and have this experience of the oneness of life, and this is the ultimate exploration is the exploration of self. And so this is going within. And he says it's all within us, but he uses breathing techniques to access it. And he actually, I'm not going to tell you much more on this because it was such a great podcast. The main kicker from this is I'm going to do some breath work. I'm going to dive into it heavily now because from what John just shared with me, how much more effective it is to actually have constant contact with your higher self. And that for me is the ultimate exploration. And ultimately, what I'm here to do is explore myself. And hopefully you will be energized and inspired to do the same. Because ultimately, once you get into that tap place of the unchanging, whew, everything changes. See what I just did there? Okay, let's do it. Let's go. Explore. Hey, John. So you were just saying you liked what you saw in the background there?
Right.
Yeah.
I have Scandinavian ancestry, and so when I see the accent, I see the shield, somehow it seems a little familiar to me.
Yeah. So I've got, for those of you listening on the podcast and not watching the video, I've got a Viking axe, a shield, and I've got another document that's beside it, which is called my unique ability. So that always reminds me of my body, my mind, and my spirit. So it's always it's a reminder all the time of and on the Viking shield, you'll see it's the world serpent eating its own tail.
Right.
Yeah. That's for me the representation of spirit. So.
Kind of a universal symbol. You see that snake and its tail in many different civilizations.
Yeah. So which other ones are there?
Mexico. It's very popular in Mexico and Central America.
Okay. Yeah. So, and the symbolism of that is
I think the spirit turning in on itself and
okay,
connecting with its deepest level.
right. The other thing I also think about that is that I think in terms of when I see it, it also reminds me of not to overthink things because I'm eating my own tail. You know what I mean?
Got it.
Yeah. So where's your ancestor? Like Scandinavian, what parts?
Not from the Viking part so much, but from Finland and Sweden.
Oh, okay.
And, I think Vikings are mostly from Denmark and Norway, but from Finland and Sweden, and the other side of my family is from Ireland. So it's an interesting combination.
Right on. Yeah. So if you're Irish, well, then if you're Irish, you probably have some Norwegian in you, anyways.
Right, from the Viking.
Yeah, exactly. I say that to my father-in-law all the time. I say, when he gives me a hard time, he's from Scotland and he has blue eyes, and I said, just remember where your blue eyes came from. And he goes, "Oh, you're such a prick. You're such a prick." So
it's comes from Viking invasion, the Norsemen.
Yeah, big time. Which was a very shortened period of time too. Like
Right.
it wasn't very long. And it followed a comet, if I recall correctly. There was a sky comet that flew across in England. They saw this huge comet fly across the sky. And soon after that, the Vikings went in and started doing their Viking stuff. And it only happened for a short period of time. So they kind of went berserk for a while. And then, because I'll tell you right now, I go to Norway and you just don't, it doesn't make any sense to me why the brand of people would be such violent past. Do you know what I mean?
Right. And the Norsemen actually eventually settled and founded towns. Dublin is a Viking town, and then the Normans who conquered England were descended from the Norsemen.
Yeah.
The Normans that came from France descended from the Norsemen.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Yeah. And where we are in North America, they were the first to come, the first Europeans to come across. So
Absolutely.
the explorers.
Newfoundland, all kinds of places.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's, and again, this is why that's why I've said call it like self-discovery wrapped in a Viking blanket. That's what the Viking Academy is all about, right? And so again, you and I were kind of just briefly talking before we started the podcast that we just met. I met through your publicist. I guess they did a reach out and said, "Hey, would love to have, I think there might be a good fit here."
Right.
And I looked at your background. I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be fun. This is
Can't wait. Can't wait.
So give me and the listener and the watcher a little background on who you are and what you're doing now. So we kind of have a little backstory here.
Right. I grew up in upstate New York, a little town called Skaneateles on a lake in upstate New York. Had a pretty normal childhood. Experienced periods of kind of deep silence that woke me up a little bit, and kind of began a spiritual journey on a course called Outward Bound, which you may know about. It brings young people out into the wilderness, and I had a 3-day solo, which dropped me into silence for 3 days. I'd never had that experience before. So that kind of gave me a taste of wanting to experience myself at a deeper level. I ended up teaching an Outward Bound light course the next summer, and one of my colleagues and good friends had this indestructible sense of humor, a lot of energy, got along great with the students. Students loved him. And it being the end of the 60s, I said, tell me what drugs you're taking. What's the story? And he said, no, it's this thing I do when I close my eyes twice a day. And he's talking about meditation. And I said, that sounds really strange. He said, yeah, I understand. But he kind of put his hand on my shoulder, and because he's a good friend. And he said, for my sake, he said, check it out. And so a year later, when I was a freshman in college, I learned to meditate. 4 years after that, I learned to teach meditation. That's 1975. So I've been teaching meditation pretty much for the last 50 years, and most especially in the last 35 years for an organization, a UN NGO called the Art of Living Foundation, which combines some very powerful breath work, something called Sky Yoga, with mantra meditation, silent retreats, and things like that. And one of the projects I have been most excited about is that I've been teaching returning Iraqi and Afghani vets who have post-traumatic stress. And these breathing techniques have a tremendous transformational effect on people who have been subject to a lot of trauma. I did the same thing during COVID, taught a lot of frontline doctors and nurses who've been experiencing post-traumatic stress. I just got back from Australia, started a vets program there, been teaching in South America. What more can I tell you?
Well, dude, okay, so this is where I love this connection between the connection to spirit, shall we say, the quiet meditation, coupled with the breath work, which is of the body. So, and this is where that connection comes in, because it's been kind of a theme that's been happening with the last few podcasts. One is intuition, and the other one is this connective force between the 3 points of what I call the Viking Academy is the mind, body, and spirit, or what the exploration is of the mind, body, and spirit. So taking, doing meditation in itself is great. Doing breath work in itself is great. But it sounds like when you combine the two, now you have this incredible healing effect. And so can you explain a little bit more on why that you figure that's the case? How does it work, and why does it work?
Right. Breath is really important for a number of different reasons. Let's start sort of at the beginning. It's one of our major sources of energy, along with food and sleep and other things. Most of us only use 30 or 40% of our breathing capacity. It's also very important for our health. I taught AIDS patients before there were any AIDS drugs, and all of a sudden a ton of them showed up because they discovered that their T cell counts went up when they learned about these breathing techniques, and their immune system got stronger, meaning that they live longer. So breath is important for energy. It's also important for health. But you very acutely touched on a third, almost hidden aspect of the breath, which is that it's a hidden connection between the mind, the emotions, and the body. Have you ever, Eric, been in a meeting where somebody's really upset and they're trying to be polite? They're not saying anything, but they're sitting there going,
Yeah. It's like a
and
bull. It's like a bull ready to charge because they're just,
that's right. So you know they're upset because you've seen the rhythm of the breath change.
yeah.
And if you've never been around a mother with a newborn child and she's singing a lullaby to the child, she's watching the breath slow down, slow down, slow down. The baby finally goes to sleep, but the mother is seeing that the baby's getting more relaxed because the rhythm of the breath had changed. So from time to time, we notice this sort of in an incidental way. But what would happen if I could teach you or anyone, especially people with trauma, rhythms of breath that would bring them back to a quiet, centered place, no matter what else was going on in their life? So trauma, for instance, because it just came off this vet's course in Australia, it's very hard to treat because psychiatrists and people in vet service organizations think it's in the mind, but a lot of it's buried in the body. And the breath can go very deep in the body, these different rhythms of breath, and allow that hidden trauma in the body to dissipate. Also, if you're a physics fan, which I'm sure you are, you've got all kinds of mind, body, spirit stuff going on in your podcast. You may know about the latest or most recent widely held theory of physics, which is the unified field theory. Basically, it says that everything in the universe is basically energy or vibration. Everything in the universe is connected. And everything, including us, has a level of change, and underneath that, a level of unchange. And the most amazing thing about these breathing techniques, the one in particular that we teach, is that it goes through all the basic levels of our existence, the body, the mind, the breath, memory, intellect, ego, and drops us into the unchanging level, which you could call the self or Brahman, or in the Bible, they call it putting on the mind of Christ. But all spiritual traditions say that underneath all the change and the chaos and the movement, there's something inside us that doesn't change. And it turns out that's that unchanging place, quantum field state, I think the physicists would call it, is the source of all the best parts of ourselves: love, compassion, intuition, inspiration, all those things. So when we dip into it using the breath and meditation, and we come out, it's like we go into it as a dry sponge and we drop into it, and all those qualities, we soak them up, and then we express them out in our daily activity. But for people with trauma in particular, we did a study at the University of Wisconsin in Stanford about 10 years ago for people who were severely impacted by post-traumatic stress, meaning they couldn't live a normal life, they were under a lot of drugs. And in a 7-day program, this program is called Project Welcome Home Troops, they saw an average decrease of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress of about 40%. Interestingly enough, when they treated those people and tested them 6 months and a year later, the symptoms were still low.
Even though they hadn't continued on with the practice,
some had
or were they, yeah.
practice, some had not, right? So there's significant change that can happen in the body through judicious and very precise use of the breath. If you study languages, it's very interesting. In Latin, the root word for spirit and the root word for breath is the same, spiritus. It comes out in spiritual in English and also in respiration. Same thing in Greek and in Hebrew, even in Hawaiian language. So ancient people knew that there was an intimate connection between the breath and the spirit. Even when you go to the Bible, when God tried to create Adam and Eve, they breathed breath on them. And when Jesus wanted to give special blessings to his disciples during Pentecost, he breathed on them. So breath is a very powerful and for most people unutilized tool. I think I'll stop there because I think you have more questions.
My brain, yeah. Well, you can see my eyes. I'm like processing all over the place because, this is awesome because I never realized it was so. I didn't realize the breath work was so important. I mean, I knew it was important, especially when my wife and I were preparing, for my daughter to show up because, you go to the Lamaze classes or what is it, you're practicing the breathing for that. Like I knew that was important, but I didn't realize the breath was that connected throughout all of the spiritual teachings and also the languages that it's connected through there. Um, yeah, I'm a little bit stunned at the moment. Also, given the fact I'm thinking I'm not doing enough meditation and breath work. What? Okay, so here, let's go this. What would be a simple, quick for someone starting into meditation breath work? What would be something that could get them started just to get a taste of what we're talking about? Because what you just explained there in terms of reaching into the unchanging is my experience of seeking a higher power. So I'm 18 years sober. So for the last 18 years, I've just been focused on prayer and meditation and clearing a channel to up my higher power. And when I do have those moments of connectivity, I feel all the things you talked about. It's like, but I haven't gone deep into the meditation side. I've done a little bit of it, but now I'm starting to understand when you just explained it that I go there as a sponge, pick it up, and then when you come back, so to speak, to the changing world, you're emanating the oneness of Allah, Buddha, Brahma, baby Jesus, whatever I call it. Doesn't seem to care what I call it.
Right.
But I have that awareness that path is all understanding. It's not an awareness in the brain. It's just a knowing. It's just this love that wraps around me. So I've had
Mhm.
moments of that, but I didn't realize that the breath work was so key to that, like it's the portal into that.
And it's not only a portal, it's Eric, it's with us all the time. You know, you started breathing the moment you came out of your mother's womb, and the last thing you'll do before you transit from this planet is to breathe out. So it's very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Only the knowledge of how to utilize it properly has been, up until now, not very well known, especially in the West.
And so, wow. So, and so you're bringing that knowledge out and showing it in tangible ways, like especially for troops, PTSD, and I mean that is again, I've got a psychology degree as well, so I've done a lot of research in terms of like how to deal with that, and it's you hear about all the different teachers and the different ideas and the thoughts of it, but what you're talking about to me resonates more because it's not just we can't just treat the mind by just going straight at the mind. I think it's the mind, body, spirit. It's like and the same thing with the body. Like I had a great podcast yesterday with Cassandra Ray Bodzak, and it was all about the nutrition for the body, but it always connected back to the mind and the spirit. Like it's like the Holy Trinity.
Right. And, the main ways that people have been, it's branching out now, but have been treating post-traumatic stress through the veteran system in the United States through talk therapy, which is fine as far as it goes, but it mostly deals with the mind, and drugs, which basically mask the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. People don't realize that post-traumatic stress doesn't get better over time without the proper treatment. So I've been treating Vietnam vets who've been on medications for the last 40 years. But you have to go deep into the body because that's where the trauma is located, and the right kind of breath can release that trauma and bring people into the present moment. Have you noticed, Eric, that even though your body's always in the present moment, sometimes your mind's thinking about something that just happened, you're regretting something or ruminating about something in the past, or it's swinging to the future, wondering or planning what's going to happen, what may or may not happen in the future. And just that vacillation between past and future is what gets people very tired. And one of the great side effects, if you want to call it, of these breathing techniques is that they bring you completely into the present moment. And why do you want to be in the present moment? Because that's where the joy is. That's where the creativity is. It's where the connection to other people is. It's where all the best parts of our life are. And a lot of us are missing that a lot of the time because our mind is vacillating. So when you practice these techniques, it brings you more into the present moment. I also teach a lot of people in corporations. I've taught at the Wharton School. I've taught at the Harvard Business School, because the human resource is the greatest resource in work. But a lot of people aren't utilizing a lot of that human resource because they're stressed or they can't really keep their mind into the present moment. So when corporations discover and teams discover these techniques, they discover a huge upsurge in productivity and also harmony in the workplace. So it's applicable to all different kinds of people. It's just corporations, doctors, healthcare providers, vets, are people that I've focused on the most recently. During COVID, I taught online almost every day in one or another hospitals, and it was part of a team called Healing Breaths. And I think we taught 2,000 or 3,000 doctors and nurses during COVID. And a lot of them have been having trouble sleeping at night and uh, getting burned out. And these techniques were enormously valuable. I was on a podcast yesterday with 700 doctors and healthcare providers learning more about these techniques. So its time has come, and I'm really excited to be able to share some of the stuff with you on your podcast.
This is fantastic. I'm having a bit, like, you can see a little bit of a stunned look in my face, because I'm like, oh, how have I not picked up on this? Because I mean, for me, it's like, I understand exactly what you're saying in terms of the past and the present, or past and the future. I likened it. I've said to people sometimes, I said, it's like you're driving in a race car. You're going as fast as you possibly can. You're doing 400 miles an hour, something crazy. And the thing is, you're totally present. You're focused on the road. The minute you turn and look to the right, it's like you're looking to the past. And so if you look off to the right, instead of looking at the road, you get scared. Your heart starts pounding. Oh, you got to go back to the center. Same thing, right. Looking to the left is like looking to the future. It's like freaks you out. So I know that my experience has been that anytime I'm feeling anxiety and stress, it's inevitably because I'm regretting the past or fearful of the future. Right?
Exactly.
It's always the case. It's very, very seldom that I'm being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger in the present moment. And I need to actually, my fear response needs to be on go. And one of the things that I've been really understanding or becoming more and more convinced of, John, is that the human mind and the way we process things is out of date. It's like we're using an ancient primitive mind, or we call it the monkey brain, or we want to call it the reptilian brain, right? The amygdala is like the amygdala hijack, right?
Right.
We're working on old software that needs to be upgraded for our present moment, because it's like it kept us alive for 7 million years. But in the current modern state, we don't need that level of awareness and say what's going to kill me, right? Because the first thing we walk into a room, what's going to kill me? What's going to kill me? And then, okay, what's going to eat me? And then second thing is, what can I eat? Right? And in that order, what's going to eat me? Then what can I eat? But this fear state is also, because we're so able to use the prefrontal cortex and abstract into the past and the future, it's that ancient brain has gone into the modern brain, and we're freaking out about things that aren't necessarily needing to be freaked out about, because our brain thinks that saber-toothed tiger is coming to kill us when we're looking at a Facebook post or a TikTok video or something like that. So like this bringing ourselves back into the present moment is so critical, but I feel like we need an upgrade to our software. Do you know what I mean? Like there's an enlightenment. Initially, do you remember a teacher of Krishnamurti?
Oh, sure.
Oh, Krishnamurti, like a knife cuts right through, just boom, right? He didn't screw around. This guy went straight at it, right? He was great. But he was like, he goes, I see it. It's necessary. We need a fundamental shift in awareness and consciousness. He sees it clearly. And I'm like, I totally get that right now. Like, that's what I see. Do you see that as well?
I see that completely. And you really have brought up a wonderful paradigm when you talk about fight or flight, because a lot of scientific research has been done on these techniques. And scientists hypothesize that the reaction that happens when the breath work does its job is the exact opposite of fight or flight. In other words, the stress hormone goes down, the blood pressure and the heart activity normalize, not just once, but over time. So this may be the technology that finally allows us to balance fight or flight. Now, every once in a while, fight or flight, is a good thing. We're walking across the road and in a crosswalk, and a car comes, we've got to jump out of the way. But when that kicks in, as you just said, again and again and again, it produces a lot of really harmful physiological changes in the body, which is why people get heart disease and all kinds of things, high blood pressure at an earlier and earlier age, is they don't know how to control that fight or flight. So the techniques of breathing that we teach in the Art of Living Foundation allows the mind to go in a completely opposite direction, not only during the duration of the meditation, but to provide a kind of a stasis or balance in activity so that we don't automatically go into that fight or flight. It's very interesting the way it happens.
And I was just thinking back to the vets that you are helping. They are in a state of fight and flight legitimately because they're in the war zone. They're in that, but it's at a heightened state. And then when they come back and they have all this, being in that state for that long, and the scarring and the body memory and the trauma and all the rest of it comes with them. It's almost like our current, and I know there, well, maybe you can compare the two. If you look at this plight of humans today that are on their phones all the time, they're in a constant state of fight or flight at a lower level, but can the brain and the body really understand the difference between something that's fake on a screen versus an actual saber-toothed tiger coming at them, right? Like, it's the physiological changes are fairly similar, aren't they? Like,
they are. That's why it's such a fascinating conversation. That's why people in Australia, where I just was, and in Ireland and other places, are banning the use of those screens for kids, because kids' nervous systems in school are very malleable. They're very sensitive. They haven't completely grown up into an adult kind of more stable level. So you see a lot of kids who are completely overshadowed by these screens and going into fight or flight and seeing things that may or may not be true. And it really screws up their mental health. So people are starting to say, let's find ways of regulating these instinctual impulses inside us, especially for our kids. And like I said, and like you just alluded to, especially with people that are stuck in the past. My experience of post-traumatic stress, and I'm sure you've had people on your podcast who either work with people like this or have suffered from it, is that there's a traumatic event which completely overshadows them. And it could be something they've seen, something they've done, or someone they've lost. And it so overshadows the nervous system that the nervous system doesn't, go completely crazy. It shuts down. What happens when a computer shuts down? It keeps trying to reboot. So for the next month or year or 5 years or 10 years, the mind keeps trying to reboot, and it reboots by bringing that situation up again and again and again and again, and keeps people completely out of the present moment. It's very unfortunate. And my whole premise is we sent those people, overseas to protect us, and they deserve more care than we've been giving them when they come back. And so that's why we teach. We've taught thousands of vets for free, vets and their families, over the last 15 years in Project Welcome Home Troops.
How applicable would this be to, let's say, someone like myself who's gone through rehab and in recovery, and from, obviously I'd never went to war. I mean, I haven't been that, but something must have happened in my past that caused the traumatic event, which is my understanding of it. It's the traumatic event that caused me to then go to the spirit, being spirits, being alcohol, to connect to God. It's like there's a hole in my heart that I've been trying to fill, that I used to try and fill with alcohol.
Right. The whole, in my experience, we worked a lot with people in recovery. I just taught some people at a domestic violence shelter who were struggling with recovery. And the only thing that will fill that hole in the soul, in my experience, is that unchanging place inside. We did a film called Almost Sunrise with the vets. And at the end of it, there's a person named Thomas Keating who's talking to a vet. And he said, there's a place inside you that's deeper than anything you've ever experienced, any trauma you've gone through, any memory you have. And when you touch that place, even briefly, everything changes. So if you've experienced a traumatic event in war, it's not that traumatic event goes away, but your relationship to it goes away. And the traumatic event loses its hold over you. So it allows you to come into the present moment. And, for people who've been struggling with it for years and sometimes decades, it's really, truly a life transforming moment when that happens. I don't know if that connects to what you were just saying, but that's my experience.
Yeah, well, It does. So from my experience, so I work with a lot of people too, because that's part of the recovery movement is you end up working with people. So you're a sponsor and you have a sponsee, and then, uh, it's always about helping others. So I've seen this over and over again. And the experience of Alcoholics Anonymous is that no one fully recovers from alcoholism until they completely surrender. And that act of surrendering the self, and the third step prayer is, relieve me of the bondage of self, right? That
Right.
self with the small s, right?
Correct.
Relieve me of the bondage of self so that I may better do thy will being that what I think we're talking about here, which is that unchanging highest power, God,
Right.
Alabuddha
Mhm.
Brahman, right? Um, is the release of the smaller self and surrender to the higher self, into that unchanging realm. And so and people experience this in the step 4 and 5 when you do your cleansing, and then you share it, and then you have this incredibly aware moment of basically coming in conscious contact with your creator, which happened to me. And I was like, whoa, like it just changed my whole, like you have a fundamental shift. So there needs to be, it's like you can't do anything until you can't change your relationship with something until you touch that which is you, but not you.
Correct. You can call it the small mind and the big mind.
Yeah.
And when the small mind experiences the big mind, it realizes it's like a drop in the ocean, and it's a tremendous amount of peace and connection. And I would agree with you that there's no true healing. Actually, Carl Jung said that there's no true
Yeah.
healing without that spiritually transformative experience. But it becomes much easier for some of these people to get sober, going back to Alcoholics Anonymous, when they can actually experience that unchanging place on a daily basis. It helps to fill that hole, that void inside, and bring them into the present moment. So we have something called the art of recovery, which works with people in drug and alcohol addiction. And the finding is that their journey to sobriety can be much quicker and more fulfilling and uh, more self-directed. One of the things that vets like so much about these techniques is that we give them a home practice, something that they can do every day on their
Mhm.
own for 10 or 15 minutes. And what's the first thing that they want to do? They want to go out and help other vets. So it's our biggest cheerleaders are vets who have gone through this program, who tell other vets that this is something that can really help you a lot with your struggles with PTS.
And that's part of the AA thing. So like helping others that want to recover from alcoholism is like, that's a joy for me to go and actually help somebody else. I'm very curious though. You just said something there where you found a methodology that actually speeds up recovery. Not only speeds it up, I'm assuming your shall we call it, your success rate is higher, because I know in AA the success rate isn't all that great, shall we say, percentages wise, even though there's never been a true study on it, because
Right.
we don't keep stats and numbers on people. But you see people coming in and out all the time, and one of the big things that is a blocker for them is when we start talking about having had a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening, right? Oh, Jesus is God. We're talking about God, and I'm out. No, not going to do it. And then I'd rather go back to the booze, which of course the booze is them actually trying to seek a higher power through the alcohol, which I understand now.
Right.
But it stops us for. You said there was a methodology you found that actually has worked even better. I'm very curious about that.
Right. Well, there are about 100 different studies on all the different effects of these breathing techniques on this website, artofliving.org. And one of them shows a decrease in the use of alcohol and drug uh, uh, experience among people who practice this. We have this brand new program called Art of Recovery, where everybody on the course is somebody who's struggling with an addiction. And there are people that teach this. I taught with a psychiatrist named Dr. Robert Feely, and he's an addiction psychiatrist. He's all he does is deal with people with addictive behaviors, and he's discovering that combining his normal therapy with the breathing is tremendously opening up for these people. It gives them possibility. This experience opens them up in a way that talk therapy doesn't necessarily, or being in a group just talking about it doesn't necessarily. They feel the possibility when they start to touch this unchanging place inside. Then it becomes easier, as you said in that 12 steps, to surrender, because you're surrendering to something that you've already experienced. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So I actually really like that. You've actually you've created a shortcut or a more direct path to first contact. Do you
Right.
know what
In
I
the West,
mean? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do. And in the West, it's always believe, have faith, and then you'll have the experience. Where in the East, where these techniques come from, it's like experience and the faith will come by itself. So for people
yeah,
who are skeptical, who are battered, who've been through so much, a lot of them have a lot of self-doubt or self-remorse. Just dropping into that place is so peaceful, but also it gives them a hope that maybe they've never had before, that they can maybe have a normal life. It's my
yeah,
experience anyway.
yeah. And that's, the interesting thing with the alcoholism, which I talked to Cassandra about yesterday. She was talking about having a bad relationship with foods, and I'm like, well, that's a food, but it's a separate kind of category all itself. Alcohol. You could, if you were allergic, she was allergic to chicken and eggs, so she said it's a horrible reaction to it. So I said, as soon as that, were you okay to just putting it away? She goes, "Yup." I said, there's the weird part with an alcoholic. It's like you obsess about having the thing that's actually killing you because your brain's telling you it's not killing you. So it's like your head's out to get your ass. It's like it's a
Yeah.
disease of the mind and the body, right? The body's allergic to the alcohol and the brain just obsesses is going after it. So trying if they have an obsessive brain going after, and the obsessive brain wants the alcohol, and if we're coming at it from and we're coming at it from a thinking program like AA 12 steps, like recover, like, so we call it cerebral start to get to a experiential part. You're saying you're starting with the experiential, you're starting at the body level. So they go direct to source. And then it's like, oh, now I feel it. Now I know it. I don't have to have faith about.
Right. And it gives them that experience. It gives them enough confidence to proceed down that road, especially when they have support and they can, do follow-ups and there are people around to help them do it every day. That just, we're starting a residential program in Boone, North Carolina this summer where people can actually come, be in a residential setting and get support to do these techniques every day. So it's very powerful and very exciting for me because there's a lot of people with not just addiction to alcohol and drugs, addiction to sex, addiction to anger, addiction to food, all kinds of things. Addiction is just, again, it's like that computer that's trying to reboot. It's desperately trying to find that thing which will satisfy them, but just using ways that are doomed that will never fully get them there.
I'm curious on this. Do you have a theory or a feeling about why we distract ourselves so much? Why we end up becoming like, I mean, there's a whole bunch of, I mean, I have an idea about it, but I'm very curious about your thoughts on this. Like as a species and as a human, you've come here, and then what's the purpose of us going through that and deflecting and keeping ourselves distracted by other things, alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever?
Right. In every moment of your life, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but it can begin a further conversation at least.
Yeah.
There are three things happening. There's the subject. Let's take you right now, Erik.
Yes.
You're the subject. You're listening to me, right? So there's the subject. There's the process of experience. You're listening to me with your ears and your mind is processing. And then there's the object of your experience, which is me on the screen talking to you. Most people get so completely overwhelmed by the object that they become completely oppressed by it. And my experience with people who are addicted is some of them are very, very sensitive, and they're so overwhelmed by this sense object experience that they never get to experience themselves as subject. And what happens when you begin to meditate and practice these breathing techniques is that you experience the subject at a deeper level yourself. And the object ceases to overwhelm you, and the process of experience ceases to overwhelm you, so that you start to feel like who you really are deep inside. You are this unboundedness. You are all these characteristics that we talked about: compassion, love, happiness. Most people use the bottle or drugs to try to get there, but may get a brief glimpse of it, but you don't get to experience it fully, certainly not every day, and you don't eventually get to live there. What does living there mean? It means to have the benefit of that unchanging state, along with waking, sleeping, and dreaming, as an all-time reality. Does that make sense?
Totally. Like totally makes sense. That one of the the general characteristics of the alcoholic is that they're super sensitive people. Like we're ultra sensitive, right? And
Right.
and so and you answered the question, but you didn't answer the question. So I want to go a little bit deeper on it. So I understand the how I get obsessed with or I get overwhelmed with the object of my experience, which then overshadows. So I'm not able to actually experience the subjective part of me, being the
Correct.
deeper part. And I get that. I understand the how, but my question is a little deeper. I want to go a step above that and go, why do we experience that? Like, why are we going through the roller coaster? I know this more of a just I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. Like, why do we go through that? Not I understand the how because you explained the how, and that makes total sense to me. Get it, total sense. But from a higher level, why?
It's a Sanskrit word of it is it's a lila. It's a play of the divine, a play of the universe, to allow us to have this experience as human beings, all the things that you can experience in the outer world, and they're there to enjoy and appreciate, but to make that journey beyond them, to discover who we really are deep inside. And all the experiences we experience as a human being, the positive and the negatives, are all there to show us, no, the ultimate reality isn't here. It's not here. It's not here. And finally, we look for it where we could have looked for it in the beginning, which is inside. So I don't know if for everybody, I think that answer to your question is a very individual one, but I think the purpose of human beings is to move beyond bondage in the outer world to experiencing and expressing and sharing with others the treasures of the inner world. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. But I'm gonna go one more
Even
step.
deeper. Go ahead.
Dude, I want to
Go
go
ahead.
even deeper, John. Okay, so I get that, and that makes sense to me. Okay, but again, let's go one step above that. Given that we're all one, that it's the one, shall we, unchanging, the oneness, God,
Right.
Allah, Buddha, Brahma, baby Jesus, whatever we want to call it. We are a part of that one consciousness. Awareness of that, going, well, what was this like? Coming back and going, was this ride really necessary? Because ultimately, we're going back to where we started from in the beginning. And so the ultimate why was, and here's the thing that I've kind of makes sense to me, is like, there was God, right? There was the
Right.
oneness. And it was like, I want to experience myself. And how am I going to do that? Oh, I'm going to splinter myself off into all these little individual entities known as humans and experiences and trees. And I'm going to create myself as a universe. And then I'm going to go down there and experience it. But before I go down there and do that, I'm going to give myself amnesia. Because if I don't, I'll know that it's a game and it won't really mean anything. So I won't experience what I'm not. So it's almost like a contract we made with ourselves, big selves, to say, let's go down and experience this. This time I'm going to go down as Erik. You go down as John. We're going to meet each other on March 31st, 2026. We're going to have this really cool conversation. But prior to that, you're going to have all these other, okay, yeah, okay, great. And then from there, we're going to do a whole bunch of other things, right? Which you and I don't know because before we came down, we said, but we're going to take an amnesia pill.
Right.
And so we take the amnesia pill and then we drop down and do this. And then of course, in the Hindu text is like, once you come back up, you're like, okay, let's do it again. And this time I'll be a frog. Whee, poof, and then go down and be a frog for a while, right?
Right.
Reincarnation. That one resonates with me where it's like, because when I've had these moments of awareness, like the deep unchanging, I'm like, oh. And I'm like, well, I've always been this.
Right.
What I'm experiencing now as Erik is actually the temporary thing.
Right. And I've always been this and I'll always be this. And that has never changed. That's what people experience.
Yes.
Yep.
To have that moment. And then I got to go pick my daughter up from school and take her to fastball. And I've got to pay my bills and I got to run my business. And then I forget again.
But imagine,
do you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, imagine the possibilities, Erik, of having that moment and then going off and picking up your daughter at school or whatever you're doing and having that unboundedness be there as an all-time reality along with everything else you're doing in the outer world.
Yes.
To me, that's the fulfillment of a human life.
100%. On page with you on that.
And if I had found anything in my life, and I've experienced a lot of different methods of self-development that brought people to that state quicker than what I'm teaching now, I'd be teaching that. So this is the quickest, most powerful way to experience that reality on a day-to-day basis that I've ever found, that I've ever experienced. That's why I'm teaching it.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
It's not that other methods don't work, and some methods work better for other people, but for the general population, the breath is such a great way to start because you're already breathing, right? People already have that. And so you just give them a few minutes of some breathing skills, teach them some very easy, by the end of the first day, I've had vets who haven't experienced a full night's sleep, even with medication, sleeping through the night the first time. I was on this podcast with a doctor whom I happened to teach, who was the medical director at the time of a large hospital in the Midwest. And he was wearing an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. And after the very first or second day of the course, he looked at his Fitbit and he was astonished because the amount of his deep sleep had doubled just in those first 2 days. Immediately ordered the course for 250 people in his hospital because everyone during COVID was having a hard time sleeping. So these breathing techniques, they work and they work very quickly and they work in a very deep fashion.
I love that. I love that. So again, I'm going to go back to the question. What do you think of the fact that we've given ourselves amnesia to experience that which we're not so we can experience that which we are?
I think it's absolutely right. And the more you practice meditation, the more the amnesia pill wears off. And you begin to experience yourself as you really are. Some people experience it right away. Some people experience it after some weeks or months. But the continuous experience of the absolute is the sheer antidote to the amnesia pill.
Exactly. And then you can still be here and joy of living and experience it all, but not have attachment to it. So the Buddha was like, life is suffering. It's attachment. The Buddha laughed once he figured it out. And had the joke. They figured out the joke and he laughed about it. You can still operate in this world, but you're no longer tied to it. It's
actually
like
when you operate in this world, coming from that place, you're much more effective.
Yeah.
Than you are if you're not completely overshadowed or enslaved by the object.
Which is what we talk about in AA, which is it's all the same thing. It's like once you don't tire so easily, you're more effective because you're no longer doing things to serve the smaller self, or in this case, let's say you're no longer overwhelmed by the object of your experience. You are now more in the subjective experience.
When you talk to recovering alcoholics or drug addicts, they'll tell you that their addiction just had them by the throat. I mean, drug addicts will steal from their mothers. They'll, do horrible things to continue to feed that obsession. And that's where the real bondage. They're more in bondage than some of the people who are in physical prison, because at every moment, that obsession, that addiction has them by the throat. And just a little of this can really help people feel more free in the midst of their recovery.
So So this is the artofliving.org. That's the website.
Artofliving.org, right?
Okay. And so does this like live and is there online courses that people can do for the breath work? Is there?
Online courses, there are in-person courses. We're in 180 countries around the world. We're UN NGO, but it all starts with that website, artofliving.org. I think there's some introductory information on that website. And also you can put your zip code in. I mean, I live in LA and there must be 30 or 40 teachers just in the LA area teaching this in person or online. So anywhere in the West, I taught in Mexico, I taught in Brazil, I taught in Argentina, uh, in Canada, it's very strong. So if you look it up, you should be able to find someplace near you, either for an in-person session or an online session.
Awesome.
The basic breathing course is 3 days. It's about 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours a day for each of 3 days. It doesn't have to be in residence. You can, and I teach other courses. I teach courses where people go into silence for 4 or 5 days, specialized courses for business people, as I said, for health professionals. So there are a lot of different options tailored for people's different needs. I think I put it that way.
Cool. I was just in California. I was down in Palm Springs last week.
Palm Springs is a great place.
Man, so my daughter's 13 and we brought friends of ours who their daughters are 12 and 14. So they're kind of straddle it all. And we're going to take them out to uh, Joshua Tree Park. And the girl's like, no, we don't want to go. We want to stay by the pool and blah, blah, blah. Took them out there and we're driving in the car and they were like, oh. Opened the door, went out and started walking through the cacti and this desert and then got up on the rocks and instantly all three of them changed. They all of a sudden were climbing on the rocks, they're having fun, they're smiling. There is an energy there that is just absolutely beautiful.
Well, if it's true, Erik, that what they say in modern physics, that in the unified field theory, that everything in the universe is made up of the same substance.
Mm-hmm.
And animate and so-called inanimate objects, and that underneath that level of change, there's a level of changelessness. That's why people go to the ocean. That's why they go to mountains. I had friends who just went to Sedona, Arizona, and felt a very strong, unchanging experience coming from the canyons there. So being in nature is a great way to connect to that unchanging experience in yourself because it's so strong in nature. I've been to Joshua Tree. I couldn't agree with you more. It's a very special place. And that unboundedness is as if coming out of the cactus and the trees and the rocks, all on its own.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to going back there. Like I really can't wait to go back. It's also, when you were saying that about, so I'm looking out right now over at the Pacific Ocean. So I'm straight north from you. I'm in Victoria. So, same ocean outside of LA, which is quite funny because everybody's like, really, it's the same water. It's the same water anywhere in the world, really. But when I get out on the ocean, I am the happiest because I'm out close to nature and getting out there. I want to, I really am. You've motivated me to dive deeper into my breath work and yeah, dive deep into the breath work. And so you said coupling the breath work with meditation though, as well too, didn't you? Or
Breathwork itself will bring you to a deep meditative state.
okay.
And we also teach techniques which can use that as a launching pad and go even deeper than that. It's called Sahaj Samadhi meditation. It's a mantra meditation, but a lot of people they use the breathing as a meditation and it gets them to that unchanging place and it's fine for them. Just depends on how far in that journey you want to go and how many different ways you want to experience it.
So I'm very curious how, and now I'm seeing the painting now. So it's just a wonderful thing. That's why I love doing these podcasts. Okay. I just love it because I learn so much more, but I start to see the connection of, shall we call the unchanging.
Right.
It's planned for me in the changing because I'm in the changing part, but I get to see the painting kind of drawn and the connections and the dots. I'm seeing how the need for humanity to have an upgrade to its software to operate. And this is that mechanism by which we can upgrade the software. It's bringing us to the source code. So breathing brings us to source code.
And we realize we are that source code.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Which
right.
is, yeah, it's me and not me at the same time.
And everything around you is also part of the source code. So it connects you to everything and everyone around you in a really wonderful way.
I love it. John, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
Erik, thank you so much for asking me. This is one of the most exciting podcasts I've done in recent memory. So it's great.
This is great. I can't wait to dive into it. So again, for the listener there, it's artofliving.org. I'm diving in. I'm going there. I got to do some more breath work because I've had moments of that knowing and that touching. And really, I've people often ask me, do you have a meditation practice? And I say, my life is a meditation.
Right. And I'm sure it's brought you a very long way, but wouldn't it be great to go even further?
Well, that's what I'm going to do. That's why I'm keeping exploring. That's why I'm created the Viking Academy, to keep the exploration going, right? It's like an endless, like what is it in the Bible? It says, in my Father's house, there are many mansions.
There are many mansions, and we can spend our whole life exploring them. And also, it's my very deep experience that everyone, it's what my teacher, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, has taught me. Everyone comes to this world with a gift to give. And what I really applaud you for, Erik, is that you're wanting not only to explore for yourself, but you're wanting to share that with other people. So hats off to you. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I hope we can do it again soon.
Oh, we're 100%. We're going to do it again soon. That sounds great. Thanks again, John.
Thank you, Erik.
Thanks for listening to the Viking Academy podcast. Make sure to leave us your honest feedback by leaving a review on Apple or Spotify, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.